Welcome to Getaway Stockholm9 with executive producer's comments. I'm Mr.A, and if you've seen our previous DVDs, you probably heard my voice before. I got a little bit of a cold today, but hopefully it will still sound somewhat decent. I hope that you watched this movie before without my comments, because the engine sound is so much better to listen to. For those of you who've seen this before, probably know that we make this commentary track just to let you guys in on some information and tell you a little bit on the background and things like that. For obvious reasons, the drivers can't do this. I would have liked to sit around with the drivers and discuss the movie as we watch it, to give you the opportunity, the real insight, but they briefed me a little bit on their feelings, and I think I got a pretty good idea on what to tell you people, and I hope that you enjoy it. This year has been going on for 9 years. We go, the movie starts, get our first police officer in the beginning. I think he was a little bit tired, so unfortunately he did not pay too much attention to us. Sometimes they get a little bit lazy, I think, and maybe they don't want to become movie stars, since we're becoming quite well known in the world, and so are the cops that chase us, so they try now not to give us too much attention, which is good in one way, because that is something you want: free speed on the roads and no cops to bother you. But then we would like some excitement for the movies as well. We have some cops visible here. We spent a total of 10 hours out filming to try to stir up the whole situation. The thing is that you need to keep a decent pace up, otherwise you'll ruin the whole production if you start slowing down too much. So we've actually had cops chasing us without knowing it during the production, and in some cases we've seen it afterwards on film, or we've had people out driving. Some of the cars that are passed is actually part of our crew that is out just keeping an eye out, kind of, to see what's going on. You always have to keep the track fairly clear. Sometimes they start a construction in the middle of the night, and it's not the best thing that can happen if you show up, and they've all of a sudden made a big hole in the street. This year we are introducing a new driver, Mr.A, who's doing really well, so we're extremely pleased with this new corporation. Also, we have a co-driver. For the first time since Getaway Stockholm 2, where I was the co-driver, we try to avoid passengers in the cars because it kind of affects the performance and handling a little bit. But in this case, Mr. N, that you saw his name in the credits, has a lot of experience from the underground racing scene in Stockholm, so we thought it would be fun to invite him to have a ride along, and I think he enjoyed it. Another thing that's new this year is Jonas, that we work with, who helped us make the track, which I think turned out very well. He's worked the streets of Stockholm, working for a courier company, so he really knows how to get from point A to point B in the fastest possible time. what's also important when we make these tracks is we have to adapt them to the car. We need a fairly fast track for these cars, for instance, not too many turns. Even if they handle turns really well, they do it best when they can fly. We're getting closer to my favorite place, the City Hall, that you also see on the cover. It's on the right side. See, right down here on the right side. It's fairly dark out this night that we made this. But if you ever get invited to the Nobel Prize dinner, that's where it's held. And you probably know that as well from the previous movies. Right down by the central station here. Also, when we make these tracks, we try to get it past areas where there are police activity, so we know that we will pass cop cars. The problem is also when there's police activity, a lot of times it's places where there's drunk people or people that shouldn't be out at night. So we kind of have to adjust and just use some common sense. A lot of people probably think that we don't have any common sense, but we think we do. So right there with some officers try to get a little bit of attention from. Moving down here, one of our favorite sections in all of the movies, we almost always pass by down here because it gives a great feeling of speed. There are no crossing streets, so the drivers can really let the cars go here. So you also probably seen is that we had the Mr.A solo run. We were spending so much time this year out filming to give you the best possible material, and we had a few nights where Mr. O couldn't join us, so we went out filming anyway, just for fun, to keep the cops on their toes. And that's why we gave you the Mr. X solo run, because we think it was good enough and we think it's a fun extra material for the DVD. There's a really high pace. If you compare the pace between this main feature and the pace in the solo one, you can tell that Mr. X is able to keep a higher pace. And it's always a lot easier if you're alone out driving and don't have to pay attention to another driver that is trying to keep up with you and coordinate in some way. They have to be extremely coordinated and focused, because you have to focus on people around you, and you also have to focus on the car that is following you, so you don't lose him, basically. Another thing is with these Porsches, they can't, if they get too far away, you lose a lot of the feeling, and if you get too close, it gets dangerous, because these cars stop extremely fast with their brakes that they use. So I mean, Porsches are known for their handling and their brakes, and you really have to be on your toes. This is also one of the longer runs we've made. We run through the whole city back and forth. Now we're going to the eastern part, so which is kind of the little bit of upper class apartments. So I guess we're waking up some blue-haired ladies here. We're trying to get some sleep, and this is a fairly good street to drive fast at night, because it's fairly empty and it's fairly wide. The problem is with Stockholm is that we're only about, I think, 1.8 million people. So you can probably put that in relationship to where you live, that it's hard to find new streets all the time. And I mentioned this before, that we try to get as much variety as possible, but we've been pretty much everywhere, so now it's just a puzzle to get it to seem a little bit different. Right down here we're coming to the Swedish television building, and we've passed by there in, I think, 3 movies: number 1, number 5, and number 7, for instance. We are really happy with these cars. I just have to say this again with the sound. We've always had problems with sound. It's really tough in these productions to get it the way we want it. But this year I think we have succeeded, even if they sound even better in real life. Especially the yellow one, which is just blowing me away when it passes by. For instance, up here where we have the outside camera, right down here we're getting closer to the nightclub district. We try to stay away from those areas as much as possible. This is on the outskirts of it. It's a little bit more traffic than usual. We don't really know why. We always try to keep track on drive on weekdays and things like that. So there's a lot of taxis. Somebody's riding a nice limo up here on the left, and to the right there was where Mr. X was parked in the solo run. If you look at the credits, when the cops tried to cut him off when he's standing there waiting with the lights off. Here's the Royal Garden on the right, and soon we'll pass by the Royal Castle in the Old Town. The Old Town is tying the whole city together. That is why we're always passing through this area. It's not because I love the Royal Castle so much. It's just a street you have to drive when you go through the city. So up here on the right side is where I stand to film this external shot. We always get a lot of requests for external filming. We had a few more cameras on the solo run, for instance, placed along the route. The problem is to get the right feeling, to get the right the right how should I say it, the proper effect when the cars pass by. And you can't stand too public with a camera, because if the cop passes by they will stop and they will start harassing you, and if we are out of luck they will form a roadblock, and that would be the end of these productions probably. Now we're getting closer to the end, and my 15 minutes of fame is almost up. We're passing up here where we drove in Getaway Stockholm. I think both the second one, the third one, and number 6 and number 8 actually, I think. I don't remember now, there's been so many, but we're in all those cases, except for number 2, we're going the other way. We're going into town. Now we're going out of town. And this was a great movie to make, and we hope that we get the opportunity to work with cars this great again. If you look in the credits, you will see a Ferrari, and we will let you guys think about that for a while, speculate. My time is up, and I hope you enjoyed this and that it answered some of the questions that you might have had, and maybe we'll see you again next year. Thank you.